Hi, my name is Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses with HealthyBlackWoman.com and SuccessfulBlackWoman.com. I'm here today with my good friend Shaquita Graham, who is the founder of LovingTheBlackMan.com and Ateco.com. How are you doing today, Shaquita?
I'm doing great, Noma. How are you?
Very good. So we have an interesting topic today, and it comes from the blog naturallymoi.com, and the title of the article is should the child of a single mom have the father's name? I'm pulling the article up right now, just so I could, just look at a few things on the article. So it was written by Read the Relationship Guide, and she says she ran across a post on author Tony Gaskin Jr.'s Facebook page that annoyed her. Someone sent him a message stating that a single mom should not give her child's father a false sense of fatherhood by giving the child his last name. She says she was stunned that Gaskins, a married man, would endorse such a remark. If he were to make one bad choice in his marriage, he could easily be on the chopping block, like too many other men whose exes have locked them out of their children's lives because of their failed romantic relationship. So obviously she thinks that the child of a single mom should have the father's last name. What do you think, Shaquita?
Well, I mean, of course, I shouldn't say of course, but I personally feel that the overall goal is to allow the father to take on the role of protector and provider and support that role with giving his child his last name. And, I'm totally against using children as bargaining chips and preventing either parent, a mother or a father, from playing the role that they want to play. I'm an advocate of Frances Cress Welsing's saying that, when we play with sex, the joke is on the child. So in this situation, sometimes we haven't adequately prepared to choose the right mate, and these questions are all up in the air. But overall, in general, I think that, a father would want to prepare his child to take over a legacy by giving him or the child his last name.
So you're saying that even if the parents are not married, the child should be able to take the father's last name?
I think that would be ideal, but, you have so many situations going on when you have these, different types of relationships that are outside of marriage, or marriages don't work or whatever. So you have fathers who don't want the child to have his last name, or you have a mother who, for whatever reason, I can't imagine what the reason I don't know what the reason would be, but mothers that don't want their child to have the father's last name.
Okay, well, I actually have a different perspective on this. When I saw the title, my first thought was, well, I mean, does she know who the father is? Because that's a reality, unfortunately, for some women. They tend to have, or not tend to, but some women have multiple partners. And sometimes when a pregnancy happens and it wasn't planned, they don't know exactly who the father of the child is. So that is something that is a consideration. But assuming that a woman is in a monogamous relationship, even though she's not married, or she knows who the father of the child is, I personally don't think that he should have the right to give that child his name. I think that if you're a man and you want to build a family, you put a ring on it. You marry that woman, you give her your name, and you give your children your name. If you're not willing to make that big step and that big commitment, I think that she shouldn't have to give her children your last name. You can co-parent just as well with the kids having her last name as you can co-parent if they had your last name. You can still pay child support. I really don't see how it factors in. You can still be a father as much to those children when they don't have your last name as much as if they did. I think that the only time that you should be able to insist that the kids have your last name is if you're married to that woman. And, while we're on that topic, I have a double barrel last name. I still use my father's last name as well as my husband's last name. I'm proud to be my father's daughter, and I'm proud above all things to be my husband's wife, and I take his name, and our children have his name, and we're a family. So I think that there is a significance to it if you've made that commitment. My father was married to my mother, and he gave her his name. I'm married to my husband. He gave me my name, and so on and so on. But if a man is not willing to make that commitment and marry that woman, no, she shouldn't have to. She shouldn't have to do that. I don't think so.
Well, that's an interesting perspective. I think that so right now we're in a situation where our families in the Black community have been victim to a lot of social engineering, with mass incarceration, with deprivation of economic opportunity, deprivation of education. So now we have a lot of fractured families, which is a part of what was intended to happen. So my thing is, marriage is not always the right course to take for these couples at times. And my thought is, when I'm looking at this question, I'm thinking, how can we think a little bigger here? How can we think in a way that is going to promote empowerment for the Black community? And that is related to the name is part of a legacy, right? You said you're proud to be your father's daughter. You're proud to be your husband's wife. Those names are a part of a legacy for you. And I think that the child should not miss out on the legacy because the parents could not get it together. And I think the ultimate goal should be to figure out how whatever name your child is attached to connects them to a legacy of owning and controlling something. That to me is the big picture. So, in the Black community, what we're trying to do is take empowerment, especially economic empowerment, and through other things like education and whatever your family has to offer through building throughout the years, and pass that on to the next generation. And that to me is the purpose of somebody bearing a name. So just because these two adults could not work it out and create a solid marriage, or maybe they did have a marriage and it fell apart, I think that the child should have an opportunity to tap into their legacy. And as a parent, I would want my child to have that available to them. And I don't think that a father should be taken away from a father for arbitrary reasons like, I don't like you anymore.
Well, yeah, of course. I wasn't thinking of it in terms of the couple had been married and then the marriage didn't work out and then you snatch the man's name and throw it out and then replace it with your own. I wasn't thinking about that. I was thinking, and I think that's what this article was alluding to, was a woman who didn't marry this man. They just didn't get married. So then because they didn't get married, she has a child and the child takes her name. But the other thing is, I do agree with you. I think that part of building the Black community is this building a legacy, building wealth, coming together and thinking of things in a grander scope than just a fight between two people. I do, however, think that you can still do that again without this name change. I'm a huge advocate of marriage. I don't think anybody can see me talking on a series of videos where I've talked about marriage and not know that it's something that I wholeheartedly believe has to be part and parcel of building the Black community, of building families, and of building wealth, of building legacy. I think it is the cornerstone of building, and I think that it's important. However, this is a different thing. And if you, dial back to what I said just before I started talking about this, I said, look, if he wants to really build, he should marry that woman. He should marry that woman. Before you start having children with a woman, you should marry her. If you think enough of her for her to raise your children, you should think enough of her to marry her and do that within the bounds of a marriage. I don't think that necessarily marriage is for everybody. But I mean, do your research, and I'm sure you have, Shaquita. I don't even have to say that to you, but it's been shown time and time again that the best scenario in most instances, with some exceptions, with some small exceptions, the best scenario is to raise kids within the confines of a solid, healthy marriage. That's the way to do it. And then you can talk about the names and so forth. And just a little tidbit about names, the reason why men used to give their wives their names is because, or how this came about was, men used to be believed to own their wives. Their wives were their property. Just in the same way that slaves used to take on their slave masters' names, women used to take on their husbands' names because they were their property. Now, of course, we've done away with this nonsense of us being owned, and I choose to look at it in terms of the fact that you want to create unity and you want to be, on the same page and be part of the same family. And that's why I continue to agree that you can take your husband's last name. But that was just a side note. But on this topic, I really can't see why, if a man doesn't think enough of you to give you his last name, he should expect you to give it to your children. I don't think so. And I'll stop talking about it.
Well, I to your point, I think that, people should, I think the ideal situation is to be in a relationship for the purpose of building and creating a family. And I think the best way to do that is marriage. However, again, as a result of where we find ourselves in the Black community, that's not always happening. Sometimes you have a fiance, you were going to get married and you called it off, or you were married and before the pregnancy ended or the birth happened, you're divorced. So that's kind of what I was alluding to related to that. But again, I don't think I've changed too much of what I would have to say about it, because I do think that I'm about the child. And I don't think that, just because he doesn't, sometimes you don't need to marry a person. Okay. You had sex with this person. You had a relationship with this person. It was a bad decision. That's why it's important to wait as long as possible. If you can, again, that's ideal. Wait as long as possible till you know that you're with the right person. But what happens is you got involved with a man or a woman who is whatever you want to call it. They're not suitable to build with. So now you have to stop. You don't just move into marriage just because of that. And if you have a child, you still want to move with that child into, progress with that child into the future of whatever you're building so you can give them your name. I think that's, why I would say, go ahead and do it. But,
Okay, I hear what you're saying, although I wholeheartedly disagree with it. We obviously have almost directly opposite views on the naming part. But the last thing I'll say about it is that I think that the more important thing here is that we should be more selective with who we breed with. And I think that if you don't think enough of a person to have a child with them or to build a future with them, then really you ought to exercise more caution when you're having fun, so that it doesn't end up as a lifelong decision where you have a child that you didn't intend to have. I'll stop there. This is a never-ending topic. You can get the last word, Shaquita, before we close out.
Yeah, I agree. The bottom line is with whatever we're dealing with in the Black community, our main goal, I think, should be focusing on what can we own and control. Petty arguments between past lovers, all of these, made up myths or rituals or whatever. We need to get focused on owning and controlling and building. Hopefully that could be through a harmonious marriage. If not, let's do it another way, but let's do it.
Agreed. Again, this is Shaquita Graham with lovingtheblackman.com and ateco.com. I also was just having a conversation with Shaquita before we recorded this segment, and we want to reach out to the audience and say, feel free to follow us on Facebook, Twitter. Shaquita, what is your handle on Twitter?
That's Ateco.
Okay.
So I'm at Ateco on Twitter, but I have YouTube channels like Loving the Black Man and Ateco. And I just also want to just take a minute and just thank all of the people who give us these wonderful comments and emails and things like that. I really appreciate that, because we are here to bring, some positivity to the Black community in general. So
absolutely. And feel free to make topic suggestions when you do follow us on social media, whether it be on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. We want to talk about topics that are relevant not only to us, but to everybody who's listening. My name is Nomalanga Mhlauli-Moses, and I'm the founder of HealthyBlackWoman.com and SuccessfulBlackWoman.com. I want to say thank you to my good friend Shaquita for another great segment. Thank you, Shaquita.
Thank you, Noma.
Thank you. Bye.